Alabama taking on Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, while Clemson squares off with Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl. And who better to talk about it than Fox College football analyst Joel Klatt. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are great. Thanks for hanging out with us today. So let's start and dive right in with the first game, with Alabama two-score favorites in the college football playoff semifinal. What do Kyle Murray and the Sooners have to do to pull off this upset?
Yeah, so I scoured all the statistics and watched a lot of film on these games to try to figure out what are the ways that Notre Dame or Oklahoma, in this case Oklahoma, what are the ways that they can keep these games close or even pull off the upsets against the heavily favored Clemson Tigers and Alabama Crimson Tide. Here's what I came up with for how to beat Alabama. Virtually nothing. Here's the hard part, is when you go back through and you look at the games in which teams have actually beaten Alabama, if you take out Ole Miss's game in which Alabama turned the ball over 5 times and Bama was a -5 in the turnover margin, there's really only one constant, and that constant is the fact that offenses have gone out there and snapped the ball over 75 times, and they've worn out the Alabama defense to the tune of over 14, 17 points in the second half. I think that's the way that Oklahoma needs to do this. It would help if they got some turnovers from that porous defense. It would obviously help if they continued to be the most explosive offense in all of college football with more 50-plus yard plays than anybody in America. But for me, it's more about the number of plays. Remember a couple of years ago, Deshaun Watson and the Clemson Tigers, they ultimately beat a very strong Alabama team. And the reason that they did that is because they snapped the ball 99 times. I think if Oklahoma goes over 85 snaps, that's going to be the ultimate blueprint for them to be close and potentially within a possession late in the game.
All right, the thing that's differentiated this great Alabama team from the other great Alabama teams is, of course, their quarterback, Heisman runner-up Tua Tagovailoa. He said he's about 80 to 85% healthy. I don't know if we're going to take him at his word on that or not, but how do you think the Alabama game plan changes with a potentially hampered Tua?
I don't think it changes at all, because I don't think that they have to cater to Tua. Now, they're best when he's out there, Nick, but I think that they could probably beat Oklahoma if Jalen Hurts started and played the entire game. That's how dominant I think this Alabama team is, because they still have got a great running game. Remember, they got 2 backs that are close to 1,000 yards, averaging over 6 yards per carry. They're pretty good up front. They've got one of the deeper and more sound wide receiver cores in all of college football. They're explosive on the outside. I don't think that they have to have Tua. Now, him being in the lineup obviously makes them the best that they possibly could be. What I'm nervous for about this passing game, if Tua is out there, regardless of if he's 80%, 85%, 90%, if you look at the worst defenses that he's played during the course of the season, he has absolutely torched them, which you would expect from a player of his caliber. But the top 3 defenses that he faced, as far as statistics go, he was 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The bottom 10 defenses, 33 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and Oklahoma is dead last in passing defense in the entire country. Dead last. That makes me extremely nervous. Whether Tua Tagovailoa is at 70% or 80% or 90%, they're ultimately going to be able to throw the ball pretty successfully against the Sooners D.
Joel, let's move over to the other college football semifinals. Clemson coming in, huge favorite against the Fighting Irish in the Cotton Bowl. At the end of the game, if Irish fans are happy and celebrating with a cocktail, what has happened for them to pull off the huge upset over the Tigers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge day from Ian Book. And obviously, you know, a quarterback's going to have to play well to beat Clemson. But look at where Clemson has struggled at times. And there's really one area. CC, it's pass defense. If you go back to their game against Texas A&M, Kellen Mond threw for over 400 yards in that game. A&M almost pulled off that upset early in the season. Then late in the season against South Carolina, a game that Clemson ultimately controlled on the offensive side because South Carolina could not play any defense. But Jake Bentley from South Carolina threw for over 500 yards. There are some holes in the secondary for Clemson, and if you're looking at a way that Notre Dame can keep this game close, ultimately maybe have a lead in the third quarter or even early in the fourth quarter, I think it's their ability to throw the football. Now, they're a balanced team, but their ability to throw it with Ian Book has been markedly better than what they were last year and early this season under Brandon Wimbush. So that's where I would look to. I think it's Ian Book and his ability to be efficient and explosive in the passing game that ultimately would keep Notre Dame close if they are close late in this game.
All right, Joel, let's talk about the experience variable here. This is Notre Dame's first college football playoff for Clemson, their 4th straight trip to the Final Four. How much does experience factor into this Cotton Bowl matchup?
I mean, you would always want more experience, right? I think football is a reps sport. Now, having said that, I don't know how that plays out when it comes to college players, because we haven't seen teams go through playoffs. I mean, this is only, the 5th year of the college football playoff. Granted, Clemson's been here a bunch. They went out and laid an egg last year in their semifinal game. Granted, it was against Alabama. I think they're going to play well. Their quarterback's a true freshman. He doesn't have experience in this game. Their coaching staff does. I think Brent Venables is going to learn a lot about what he needs to do, in particular in the pass defense after the long break, after playing South Carolina. But it remains to be seen for me. Jenna, experience in college football is so elusive because of the quick cycle. Because, like I said, the team, you could say, has been there for 4 straight years, and yet their quarterback is a true freshman. So how experienced are they really? You know, I'm not sure.
Oregon quarterback Justin Herbert, to move off the college football playoff for a moment, is going to come back for his senior season. I think he was most people's projected first quarterback off the board in the upcoming draft, and I know that can change. What did you make of his decision? Were you surprised by it? What was your reaction?
I was a little bit surprised. I think that anytime that you're projected to be in the top 10, you're looking at quite a payday. I mean, you know, you look at last year's quarterbacks and all the quarterbacks all the way down to even outside of the top 10. When you're looking at Josh Rosen at Arizona, they signed contracts north of $15 million. The 2 guys in the top 5 were north of $30 million. I think that's tough to turn down. They have something going, though, in Eugene right now. Nick, they pulled off a top 5 recruiting class. Then they get Herbert to stay. His younger brother's coming in. He's going to be a kind of a wide receiver, tight end type of player for them. Maybe that was a factor. But ultimately, remember now, we always point at the dollars and cents, and that's clearly the way that we can evaluate it. But college is a special time. And there are some guys that just love being a college player. And they love trying to build something and leave a legacy, which he's trying to do at Oregon. I spoke with Matt Leinart a lot about this. He said he was trying to leave a legacy at USC, which he thinks he did, even though they didn't pull off that national championship his last year. Guys have stayed, and this has worked out for them. Guys have stayed, and it hasn't worked out for them. For me, it's an individual decision, but it's awfully hard to turn down north of $17 million. That's generational money that he's turning down right now, and hopefully he's going to stay healthy, have a good year, and get right back into that position next season.
With Herbert staying in school, the draft class now is switched up, but not. Now the focus will be on Buckeyes quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. Do you feel like Haskins, because if you feel like money's a part of it, the college experience is a part, what's a greater college experience than being a quarterback of Ohio State and being a captain coming back under Ryan Day as the new head coach? So how much pressure do you think is on Haskins to be able to make that decision to stay in college?
That's a great question, and I think if I were these two, I would understand Herbert staying at Oregon for Mario Cristobal and that top 5 recruiting class. While CC, might not be what you want to hear. I would understand if Haskins came out. First of all, now all of a sudden he's going to be likely the top prospect. So now he's looking at somewhere north of $30 million in the top 5. He's going to have a brand new head coach. He's losing a ton of wide receiver talent on the outside because that was a veteran, senior-laden, captain-oriented wide receiver group on the outside that was terrific for him all season long. I think I would leave if I was Dwayne Haskins because he played some of the best football that I have ever seen in those last 3 games. What he did against Michigan was incredible. The way he played against Northwestern late in that ball game was incredible in the Big Ten championship. And I think he could capitalize on that. I would have never said that he was a top 10 or top 5 pick during the course of the season until the last few games. So all of a sudden, CC, his value has never been higher. And I'm talking about $30+ million. I know I just said it's individual and it's all about the college experience and all that, and I understand. I don't want to criticize Herbert for not coming out, but I would recommend, whether it's Herbert or Haskins, that they were to come out. The reason is that this draft class is not that strong from a quarterback perspective. He's likely to be a top 5 pick, and I don't know if I would want to go through all that coaching change and rebuilding with the wide receiver core that he's going to have to do next season.
Joel, thank you so much. Always great insight. Appreciate you getting up with us today.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, guys.
Enjoy the games. Much more First Things First right after this.